throw this into the courts. And to go to Mr. Dix's question, it is surprising to me that the governor sometimes has as little influence with the legislature as he does, especially having almost a supermajority in both houses of the legislature. And I don't think it speaks well to his ability to deal with his own caucus. I don't think many people anticipated when he was running for office in 2010 that he was going to be that unsuccessful, not just with Medicaid expansion, but with a whole number of initiatives. He had a school funding plan, and the legislature threw it out. He had a severance tax, and the legislature on oil and gas, and the legislature threw it out. He had a sales tax expansion, which the legislature threw out. So on a number of his core initiatives, he's been unsuccessful. And for somebody who part of the rationale for electing him was that he had all of this political expertise in terms of dealing with legislative bodies, I think it's been pretty slight. And the fact that he's having to go through the controlling board, I just think is unfortunate. Now, I think he has to do what he has to do. I do think that he's used certain rhetoric that I think has aggravated the problem. And here's what I mean by that. In 2010, one of the governor's talking points was certainly that the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, was a disaster for Ohio. And to come out later and then take a major provision of it. And Medicaid expansion is not a small provision of the Affordable Care Act. I've talked to lots of hospital CEOs. It is the difference between a lot of hospital systems being either profitable or unprofitable. Because there are mandates under the Affordable Care Act which cost hospital systems, which are one of our major employers in this state, which cost hospital systems money. Offsetting factors that pay for some of those mandates. So to say that Medicaid expansion has nothing to do with the Affordable Care Act is disingenuous at best. It is an essential part of the Affordable Care Act. So to use extreme language about how terrible the Affordable Care Act was, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, to use extreme language on why Medicaid expansion should be passed, I think actually made it less likely the legislature was ever going to pass it. And the extreme language on the advocacy side for Medicaid expansion, I think, was telling people that if they weren't for Medicaid expansion, they were going to have to answer to God for it. Now, I'm for Medicaid expansion. I do think that there are moral implications of caring for the poor in society and people without insurance. But I think to tell a conservative legislature that they literally, when they die, we're going to have to answer to St. Peter or to God was foolish and was insulting to a lot of members of the legislature. And I don't think it was obviously not effective, first of all, because they didn't adopt it. And it kind of leads you to, it's kind of a conundrum. Why is it a moral issue that you'll have to answer to God if you won't expand Medicaid, but does that mean God was for Medicaid expansion, but it wasn't a moral issue to be for the Affordable Care Act? Because if Governor Kasich had his way, there never would have been an Affordable Care Act, which would have meant there wouldn't have been an expansion of Medicaid. It's one of the tendencies, I hope one of the things that you've seen in this dialogue that we've had today is that, I'm a person that communicates, I think, responsibly and in a mature fashion and in a measured fashion. And I don't think the governor does, and I don't think it helps him.